let's get started. Gordon, you already know. Gordon is the Chief Operating Officer of Malaysia Airports. And I also would like to invite Stewart Steeves. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Vantage Airport Group. Please join us. And Ali Rashed. He's the Chief Airport Operations Officer with Bahrain Airport Company. I start off with Stewart. You have many responsibilities across a wide range of airports. And please share your views on how the digital airport ops landscape has developed and how this has changed your implementation strategies.
Sure. Well, of course, I mean, there's many digital tools that are coming into the airport operating landscape, both from an operations perspective in terms of facilities and management and maintenance of things of that nature, as well as the customer experience environment in terms of check-in and facial recognition, as we were talking about earlier. But I think really the question for us is it just technology for technology's sake, or how do we integrate it in where there's a solid value proposition in terms of what it achieves in terms of cost savings or efficiency or passenger experience? So we think a lot about where will it complement what our objectives are and the value we're trying to bring to our customers, both our passenger customers and our airline customers. And having said that, though, that doesn't mean we don't also want to experiment with technology sometimes, or there might not be a clear value proposition, but we want to understand it and become more familiar with it to see if it could integrate more broadly into our operating landscape. So these are the things we think about when we're evaluating new technologies, of which there's an increasing vast array of technological alternatives.
Thank you. I pass on the question to Ali. What do you make of the trends and how do you adjust your strategies?
Thank you. Well, I'm Gen X, so I've seen the manual days of check-in and airport processes, and when the automation came up, it was mainly for speed, accuracy, and consistency. That has matured, obviously. Now we are reaping the benefits of more mature data that translates into analysis that help us project passenger demands, how we adapt to different challenges, different, the typographic of the aviation industry as a whole. As an airport operator, we like what Gordon have just previously said, we sometimes lose the touch whether we are the airline or who pays the cost, should we bear the cost. Bahrain Airport Company is part of a group. Our group consists of an airline. We have shares in the ground handler, and also we have shares in the duty-free shops with our concessionaires as well. So the combination of the group actually can bring a lot of opportunities for us to invest more into technology. The why for the four of us, I think, is very clear, and it's much more easier to implement strategies when you have a group working together in harmony. The understanding should be in a way to understand priorities can shift at times where you need operational efficiency to be the highest of your priority. And then there are times where commercial kicks in and you need a model to be flexible enough to adapt. There's nothing better than having one group aiming for the overall benefit rather than silos, and I think that will go a long way.
Yeah, no, that would probably help also to have the overarching vision.
Absolutely.
And then you have the framework you can tackle those challenges.
Yeah.
Gordon, how do you negotiate the balance of staff and technology when creating your optimized airport flow?
You need both. So if you take technology, and I'll stay on the subject of check-in and self-service check-in, and again, it came up in one of the earlier panels about the same lady actually talking about her mother and saying her mother wouldn't be able to go through an airport with a mobile phone. So you need to provide degrees of manual and staff assistance to passengers as well. You can't just put an array of technology and expect different passengers, either non-native language speakers or elderly or whatever, right, to be able to just use technology. So you need to complement with both. So our plan and the work that we're doing just now is we're putting the self-service kiosks in, but we're working very heavily with the airline and the airline staff who were traditionally, or the ground handling staff who were traditionally on the counters, moving them to the front, and it's maybe a ratio of 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 self-service kiosks that they provide assistance to going forward. And again, it's by flight. So again, the reason that we're gathering data from our airlines and our customers, we want to be able to predict just how many supplementary manual staff we need to assign to our check-in desks. We've got a very similar setup to Schiphol, which is islands. In fact, it's startlingly similar. So we've got 6 check-in islands. We've got 12 check-in rows. So we want to dynamically move our staff to provide assistance to a particular flight that might have non-English or non-Malay speaking passengers who will need assistance with this more automated process.
Thank you. Stewart, I'm sure you can share a few of your insights regarding the balancing act.
Well, it has to be balanced because not all of our users are going to be adopters or users of the technology. And so we, just as Gordon was just saying, we have to consider all of our user groups. And there's demographics that are unfamiliar with or won't prefer to use the technology. And so that's an opportunity then, I'm thinking on the customer experience side here, is how do we enable our staff? So how do we provide technology and empower our staff, our customer service staff, so they have the best information at their fingertips so that they can interact directly with the passengers. So we think a lot of things of that nature. There's just, when we see users, and I have to say, even users who might be familiar with technology and inclined to use it, they can be in travel circumstances where it's inconvenient. Maybe they have a lot of bags, maybe they're traveling with their family. So we find that we cannot rely on technology alone. It can supplement the journey, but sometimes it's another dimension that under certain circumstances or some users, they're not going to kind of defer to the technological alternative. And it's amazing the power, the customer service power of putting people in the process. Not in the way, but I'll say along the way. Like, for example, we can have flight information screens that have a lot of information, have been really kind of well engineered in terms of how it presents the information. But if we put a person there to help guide people, a significant percentage of the people who come up to that information will default to the person to ask the question. So we really see human intervention as an important part of the overall customer experience, but then empowering that person with the technology is where it can really be powerful.
Yeah, I think this is very true. And Ali, you probably have a comment there as well.
Yeah, I think we agree with both. During normal ops, at least 20% of our customers proceed to the information desk, where they look for a face-to-face interaction with an agent for an information or direction. But during irregular operations, during disruptions, it's 80% actually people who are wanting to speak to somebody rather than going onto the application and finding out or depending on push notification to tell them about the status of the flight or where to go and so on. I think it's a mix of both. I take COVID as a good example, or the recent global system issue we had with some operating systems for some airlines was put on hold because of the problems with the host. Well, we used our own local DCS to actually continue operating with mitigating further delays by using another system, but it takes a human intervention between switching into both modes, especially when it comes to decision making. So I would say during irregular ops, we rely more on the human interactions. When it comes to customer experience, we see it in banking as well. If you are a prime account holder, they give you a personal contact number. So it's actually becoming a trend now for maybe your premium passengers, not for the other segments. So it's a mix of both, I agree.
Thank you. We've talked about this topic in the fireside chat just before, but I would like to ask the question to Stewart. How do you go about optimizing the capacity within the existing space?
Well, of course, optimizing capacity is a big topic. So, of course, there's all the technologies such as common use self-service kiosks, common use check-in, which certainly make the capacity more flexible, which we believe has the benefit of optimizing and maximizing the capacity of the facility. So, technology is an important tool in doing that. It's also an important tool in understanding how the facility is being used at different times. Where are the pinch points, where are the pressure points, things of that nature, as well as receiving feedback from our users. We also find that a different kind of technology in terms of good information, good signage, walking times, what offerings are on hand, can start to take advantage and maximize our capacity by distributing, I'm speaking of passengers here, but distributing passengers in a more efficient way throughout the facility. So for example, and this is somewhat unique in North America, more common in Europe, where you'd get through security and there's a common commercial district before you head on to the gates. With good information and signage, we can retain people in that commercial area or other areas of the terminal, which takes the pressure off the gates, which has the effect of using the building more efficiently. Now, that's not a new concept in many parts of the world, but it is in North America in many of our airports. So things such as that nature. Also, and we haven't quite got there yet, but the whole notion of digital twins and what that can bring to an airport and an airport operations center. Right now we use that mostly for information in terms of what is happening now. But I think the real power of some of those tools is if we can make them predictive, where we can get them to be fully integrated with, what's happening in terms of inbound aircraft and flight activity. What's the load factors on those flights? Are there any weather disruptions? What's happening in terms of local traffic conditions or outbound flights? And if we could actually get to a place where a digital twin could be less of what's happening now and more of a short-term simulation tool in terms of what do we expect might happen in the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, then that will allow us to capacity manage in real time based on evolving circumstances. In terms of gate utilization, maybe we need to shift gates around because of potential congestion issues or shift our staff to the right place. So that's the real power of some of those tools that we are working towards evolving and trying to deploy them in that way.
Very interesting, thank you. Ali, is that a focus, increasing capacity within the existing infrastructure?
Well, we're lucky. We have a brand new airport. It's only 3 years old. We are still at 60% of total capacity annually, but we do hit the max capacity per hour quite often during the 2 waves we operate currently for the national carrier and the 31 airline that currently operates out of Bahrain. So maximizing capacity is by optimizing the process. We are looking at all 7 touch points we currently have. What we're trying to do is give the airline the flexibility to operate when they wish, while we are optimizing and maximizing the hourly capacity, not the annual capacity. By doing that, we're talking to our stakeholders. We hope to be the first airport in the region to remove the immigration departure formalities from next year. We have a lot of processes that we are looking for to transact before the passenger comes to the airport. So that reduces the transaction times drastically and make the operational time less and dwell time more for our concessionaires and duty-free. The resource management also plays a good part. What we're doing right now is educating AI of our issues. We run a couple of exercises. We do projections for passengers and trains based on seasonality. Since COVID, I think we have a good trend now that we can base our projection on. We've reached 90% accuracy, I think, last year, which is a good thing. So resource optimization and removal of duplicated processes at the airport. So if you've given the information once, Our target is not to give it again to any other stakeholder at the airport. So that comes through collaboration. It's a long way, but we have an easy, I think, structure to implement that, being a group. And when we designed the airport, we engaged all airport authorities and stakeholders in the process and design. So they feel they're part of the journey. And they're more flexible to changes and more open for ideas. So we are looking at maximizing the throughput capacity per hour by removing those steps that can be done elsewhere or can be done before the passenger starts their journey to the airport.
Sounds promising.
Yep.
Do you have any aspect to add? I know
I do actually. You brought a smile to my face, Ali. So I used to work in Bahrain Airport, and as I say, about probably 7 or 8 years ago, it was part of the documented strategy that I put in there, which was to remove the physical departure immigration process. And so I'm delighted to hear that that's progressing. That for me is a game changer for airports that don't have that. So in Europe, lots of countries in Europe, there isn't a physical immigration check. It's all done digitally. I would love to remove that in Malaysia, because that's a major sort of choking point for us, and it's not in our control. It's within immigration. So that's probably a good example of sort of transformational change. I'll give you one other example of technology change that improves the process. It's not digital, because I'm not into everything. Doesn't need to be sexy. It can just be functional. So one of the things that we're actively looking at is the linerless bag tags, which basically is the bag tag that doesn't have the backing to it and all the instructions. There's alternatives out there which are you print it off and it's contact and then it adheres to each other far faster than the linerless. I had the embarrassing experience of being the COO of our airports, using our self-bag drop, and I got completely confused with the instructions on the bag tag and realised this is difficult for passengers. So we're actively pursuing that, because we believe it can take between 10 and 20 seconds out of the process time, which gives us a significant capacity increase. So the spectrum of change that you can do for me is removing departure immigration from a digital perspective down to, doesn't need to be digital technology perspective of having a linerless bag tag, because, and again, yesterday I was listening to some of the conversations about the bag tag is the nemesis. That's the next challenge for the industry, is how do we get rid of the bag tag to make the process faster, and that we're struggling with that, I think, still. But once that's cracked, it'll be really interesting going forward.
Yes. I listened to a lot of panels today also talking about data, leveraging data analytics, and then the actionable, what do you take out, what is your action at the end? And often you start collecting data, but you already kind of know what you want to do, and you're looking to justify what you're doing. And Stewart, this is a question for you. And maybe you have an example. Should COOs trust their intuition or trust their data?
No, it's a great question, and we have some powerful data in our industry, but we also are data limited in some ways, in that in fact some of the best data of what's transpiring in the airport is actually held by the airlines. So I think it's always a combination of things, and of course the data is powerful, but we need to consider the source of some of the data we're getting as well. And a lot of our data comes by virtue of the digital tools we do have in place and the people who are interacting with that. And that's not all of our customers, as we were saying before. So certainly in our decision making, we look at the data we have, we look at the feedback we're getting through our digital tools and various processes as well. But something else we found to be extremely powerful, and it's something similar to what Gordon was just referring to in terms of the bag tag process, is actually by going out and observing our passengers. Spending time, like I think as probably airport executives or managers, we probably walk around and tour our facilities and things, and I've done that for years. But I've actually found it to be extremely powerful just to go out to some particular process, or even a decision point, or an information point, and just spend an hour just standing there watching. And you learn so much, because we know too much about probably most people here travel too much and know too much about the travel journey just generally, or know too much about their own airport, certainly, to look at it impartially. But when you spend time observing your users, you learn a lot about behavior, about where pain points are, about information that it can complement what you're seeing in the data in terms of what we should be doing, where we should be looking to improve processes, or where we could make the journey more efficient. You know, and there's a way to, and we've even at times formalized this kind of observation idea by bringing people, particularly in a new facility, into the facility who are unfamiliar with it, and actually giving them kind of assignments or something and sending them on a journey, and then observing that journey and taking, you know, specific feedback on it. So I think data is very important, but we need to consider the segment of the population who's contributing to the data, or the limitations of the data we can get from the airlines, and then complement that with our own kind of analytics, observations, and experience. It all has to come together.
It's a fascinating topic, and I love your view on just observing and how people react. And we've all traveled, and in different cultures, the reactions are different, and you need to sort of prepare for a wide range of needs for your passengers, so that...
No, we have introduced technology into the journey in terms of information and other things, and seen it confuse people. Where we thought it would ease the journey, we've seen it confuse people. Yep. And we wouldn't have known that if we hadn't, you know, just walking through your facility, you'd see the technology, say, that's wonderful, it does. But if you actually spend an hour standing there watching how people interact with it, it's a wonderful sample of, are people, is it helping people or not? And how can we make it better? So really the trick is, how can we take every component of the journey and make it better? And I agree with the bag tags. I mean, that's probably the only reason remaining that people need to actually visit the check-in hall at an airport. Yep. If you could come to the airport with some kind of bag tagging system already addressed, there'd be no further reason to attend to an agent unless you're having some flight disruption or something. You just drop it in an induct and go right on through. Yep. Right?
Yep. Ali, do you trust your intuition or your data?
Well, I think it's both. At least for now, I recall the COVID days where we had flight capping on number of passengers we can receive on a day. So when the demand started to grow above the threshold, we had to make up unprecedented decisions because we have no historical data to base our decision on. So we had to take risky decisions, well-calculated risky decisions, where we can go over the capacity but without affecting the throughput capacity by having a fallback procedure should things go wrong. But I think AI will replace intuition in the coming years. What we seem to understand and analyze personally, I think it will be replaced by machines in the near future. So yes, but for now, yeah.
Gordon.
I'll give a short answer to this. So was it trust your instinct or trust your data as a COO? If you'd asked me this as a younger man when I was a Six Sigma black belt, then I was indoctrinated in data, and I would have said always trust data. However, as you get older and a bit more experienced, then it's a bit of both. I kind of trust my judgment as to which areas that I want to get data on, and still use data. So it's kind of a little bit of both. But as you get more experienced, then you can use your judgment more. When you're younger, just stick to data.
A fascinating topic is the next question. Different passenger segments. It follows on a little bit from our earlier discussions, but the design of your airport very much is influenced by the needs of these different people. So maybe you can start off with Stewart, share a little bit about your experience and how you adapt, and maybe also had to make changes as your customer base is changing.
Absolutely. I mean, there's many different passenger demographics. I mean, it's the whole of society who uses our facilities. So all the demographics that exist within society, and I might add, not just the society that the airport's in, but clearly the world who could be coming to that destination. But then I think there's another dimension as well, and that is each of us have a different kind of profile or set of needs depending on the reason we're traveling. If we're traveling for business alone, that's entirely different than when we're traveling, say, with a young family. And I lived internationally when my family was young. Gordon, it sounds like you might have done the same.
Yep.
Like traveling with young kids and strollers and excess baggage and things of that nature is entirely different than traveling with carry-on as a business passenger. And your set of needs is entirely different. So how we accommodate for that is extremely important. And I think as we go back to the nature of technology and such, I personally, and I think our users are a bigger user of technology when they're in kind of more of a professional kind of or solo travel kind of situation. But if you're traveling in a group, you're traveling with elderly travelers or maybe extremely young travelers, usually just the logistics of that travel experience is kind of enough, and you're looking for a different kind of assistance. So there's things such as that. Another thing we need to think about is how we want to personalize the experience as well. So we've adopted things like digital concierges, things of that nature that can kind of start to customize your journey and your travel for you. But one thing we continue to think about is how do we adapt for that while continuing, for example, to get people to take advantage of commercial offerings and concessions, things of that nature. Because I'll just use an example. If we only have two hands, so if you've got a suitcase in one and a coffee in another, using your phone just got precluded. Or a suitcase and your phone, now you're probably not getting the coffee. So how do we think about the needs of the passenger during the various stages of their travel, and how we don't impede kind of services or leverage the ability to take advantage of what is on offer at the airport? It's kind of a big non-answer, but it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Yeah, but it's easy. I mean, you go back to basics. Business travelers, they want exclusivity, speed, and efficiency. That was incorporated in our terminal design. We're a single-floor terminal where passengers find it easy to reach to the airplane or disembark and then go to the baggage carousel. They don't have to change floors. So it was embedded in the design, and after the integration, we have a team that monitors the personas and customer segmentations per seasonality. We introduce at least 2 customer enhancements per month, so 24 a year, and all based on the data that we receive on the previous month. We plug it in for the next seasonality. For the same month next year, we try to adapt our offering based on the actual demands. We have an entertainment zone that actually was integrated with the terminal, and we keep modifying the offerings based on the intake. We carefully monitor the age group, time of use, and so on, and then when it comes to replenishment of furniture items or offerings, we always look at the previous demand and the seasonality, and we adapt our offerings accordingly. We might not be the biggest, but we are, I think, the most friendly airport in the region.
Maybe you can give us an example. What is your favorite offering out of those 24 a year where you say that was really...
Our biggest selling point was the entertainment zone. It's a free zone where we have built within the terminal. It is right in the center of the terminal where all the passengers dwell through. So if you're traveling with kids, you can leave your kids there, and we have staff looking after them while you do the shopping and then coming back. One family member has to stay with the kids. But that's taken the noise away from the boarding gates when kids need to move around and play and burn some energy while some other passengers want a quiet place. So that's number one. And we also installed video games, and we have also chess. We have, you name it, we just adapt to what passengers actually demand. This is a big seller for us. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question that just popped into my head from the earlier discussions also about your capabilities of staff, enabling your staff. And this is a highly complex solutions with AI, predictive operations, and so on. How do you enable your staff? Do you see a gap? Are you able to close this gap? What is helping you in this challenge?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go. So it actually touches on maybe a little bit on the previous topic as well. So we can, in these sort of forums, we tend to talk about the product and the end game, and quite often we don't talk about what is the enabling mechanism for that. And the enabling mechanism for all these products and services is actually the organization that you have. So I've got a department that's got the acronym of OEGX, so it's Operational Excellence and Guest Experience. And so with this team, I'm recruiting and I'm hiring them and expanding, because I've recognized that if I want to expand that product offering and I want to make my process more efficient, then I need to have resources that are working on it. So if we talk about, just to come back to your last point on educating the staff, our guest experience staff, all our guest experience staff that work in the terminal go through a briefing every morning before they start their shift. There's a big line of them. I've stood in it myself and got the briefing. And they get briefed on what's happening today, what's the latest technologies, that's more offline training, but we're constantly briefing on educating the staff about what's happening in the airport, and I think that's super important around day-to-day operational changes that are going to take place, that we know are going to take place, and then technology places. We've got an academy, and we're about to look at how we can completely reinvest in that, both in terms of infrastructure and in terms of courses and supplementary support that we give our employees. So it's you don't get the customer experience without improving the quality and knowledge of the staff that you've got. So it's super, super important that we do that, and we're actively looking at that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I think we want to use technology to equip our staff with information so that they can provide excellent, customer experience. And I would even suggest it's beyond just our staff. It's all of the people who work in the airport environment. And if we can get everybody, and this is a constant kind of aspiration, get everybody to be part of the customer service team in a broader sense. Security workers, people who are managing wheelchairs or something, if they can all participate in the customer experience environment because they've been equipped with the information to do so, then that's incredibly powerful. Because any of us can only put so many dedicated customer experience people in the passenger environment, but there's many, many more airport staff who are in the environment doing other things if they can make customer experience a part of their role. But to do so, and to do so effectively, they need to be equipped with the information. So, within our organization, we do that through pushing out through our digital tools and our digital twin type information, like into iPads and things, right out to the staff who are on the floor. And we would love even to get to a place where, for example, the cleaning staff could be equipped with the information to assist the passengers, but also, from a customer experience perspective, be equipped to know where to go to do. No, I don't mean kind of spot emergency cleaning, but where has the facility been most recently heavily used, and where is it now vacant enough that you can move in and clean? So there's a lot of ways to kind of get more interactive and more dynamic in terms of how we deploy staff, deploy resources, and it's all information-based.
Mm-hmm. And this sounds also very powerful in creating this team spirit.
Yes, yes.
So you know what the people next to you are doing, and I really like that approach a lot.
Yeah.
I think there's always a fear when it comes to automation and manual handling. Staff are more reluctant maybe about losing their jobs if the machines will take over the transactions. What we do right now is doing a knowledge transfer where all staff need to understand the basics right. They need to understand why we're doing these transactions at the airport and the impacts they have on other departments. Someone sitting in the control center should understand what the baggage handler at the tarmac actually needs and requires, and able to enable them to make the right decisions. But what we intend to use in our company is use technology to improve productivity rather than being a threat to their job. is to make them wiser, to introduce different ways of doing things by doing more with the same workforce that we have. And Paul just touched on the point that they have maybe grew the business by 9 times, but staff productivity increased 9 times compared to the same traffic they used to handle when he took over. So yeah, we use technology to improve productivity and not to see it as a threat to their job, but an enabler while understanding the basics. Why we do things is a critical question, I think, that needs to be answered when it comes to training.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to see if the audience has any questions.
It's over here too.
I'll just run over to you.
Hi, I've got a question for Gordon. So my name is Raoul, I'm from EIT and Mobility. My question is, how would you look at the smoothness of a customer experience, particularly when passengers are flying into Kuala Lumpur? And how does that align with, say, public transport from an innovation sustainability standpoint of view?
That's a great question. So we're actually looking at that. So we've just engaged a consultant to look at the intermodal transfer. In fact, Paul was talking about it earlier on as well. An airport is just an intermodal aspect between airplanes, obviously, and then is it car, is it bus, is it train? So we've got cars, buses, trains at KL, but we don't actually understand the percentage split of how they're arriving, and so I want to understand that. I think I want to look at how we design that interface, because I've got known blockages in that process. As an example, our elevators are not big enough we've got 5 levels in KL, so that's going to be part of the remit. I think over time as well, you want to look at how do you encourage more environmentally friendly modes of transport. So obviously the trains there. We're starting to introduce EV. Different countries are at different stages in the ESG journey. So it's about taking where you are and then improving on that. And so these are all aspects that we are looking at from that perspective. We've also included ESG as a mandatory requirement on all procurement activities going forward. So there has to be an environmental sustainable requirement on anything that we are doing just now. So we're very much looking at intermodal, a kind of much more holistic view in our airport.
Is there another question? Yes? Much better.
Hi. My name is Rosanna Shalwala from the Ministry of Tourism, Saudi Arabia. My question is for Ali. I know you just said about removing physical immigration checkpoints. So I know this is not as easy as it sounds, remove a process. I had a question about how do you tend to do that? Would you guys think about doing the operations before the passenger comes to the airport, or what are you guys thinking of?
Thank you. Good question. Actually, it's not easy, but it's actually a win-win for us and the immigration authority. They will also reduce their manpower costs. They can deploy the resources elsewhere. So they're talking about reducing the headcount requirement by almost 30 staff per year. That's huge savings for them. Technology is there. We're not the first airport to do it. Basically, we are talking to our system partners where, as I said, we are intending to do most of the airport transactions off airport. There will be a boarding inhibitor if the passenger has any issue with immigration. We only have one single immigration office at the land side, so if the boarding card is not issued, they will be directed to proceed to that office to sort out either be it immigration fine and so on. When it comes to a passenger hit list, there will be an early warning center when the booking is created. It gets pushed into the system, and then It can clear the passenger. This is where the boarding inhibitor gets activated. We can talk in details later on, but we're more than happy to share the experience. Interestingly, we also connected with Saudi through a causeway. 20% of our passengers travel through the causeway because of the proximity. Our airport is closer to some parts of the eastern province than Dammam Airport. So we are talking to the immigration authorities and customs at the causeway to make it a single stop point for the passenger. If they pass through the causeway, they have already passed through the immigration system at the airport. And that will come soon, inshallah, next year.
Thank you. The view on time, and no other question. I would like to give the chance for a final statement, and maybe you can combine it with something that you've learned, like in a project when you think back and you go, oh, this is something I wish I'd known before, I would have done this differently from this sort of view that you have now. Is there a learning you can share with us?
Sure, I'm happy to start. I think, ultimately as airport operators or developers, we're trying to achieve, efficiency, perhaps return for our shareholders, sustainability measures, but ultimately in the mix of how we're evaluating our own performance or our stakeholders are evaluating our performance is customer experience, customer performance. And I think the thing that we've learned over time is what makes a great airport from a customer perspective isn't what we think makes a great airport, it's what our customers think make the great airport. So really everything that we need to do has to be seen through the lens of the customer. And that's typically passenger surveys of some kind or another. And so we've learned that the idea of choice, giving people choice, giving people information so they can make choice, and doing that in an integrated and a smooth fashion leads to high passenger satisfaction. Because if I am informed of something or I discover something that I make a choice to do because it's what I enjoy doing or want to do, then I'm by definition a satisfied passenger. And then even when passengers make those choices and do those things, then even if another passenger doesn't make any choices and just goes right to the hold room or waiting area, they're going to be more satisfied too because there's less people there because other people have made a choice along the way. So really, we look through the lens of what the passengers are telling us. And that informs our technology, our processes, our service offerings, and how we communicate that. And as I said before, but we can't always trust the technology to give us that passenger feedback because not all those customers are in the technology. So we have to find other means to get those feedbacks as well. But we found that that's the way we can drive performance, drive customer satisfaction. And certainly in the case of Vantage Group, it's what led to our terminal LaGuardia, Terminal B, being the first 5-star terminal in North America, is by taking that passenger-oriented perspective. Not what we as the operators think is the right thing, but listening to the voice of our customers.
I'll say it again, if you are embarking on new technologies, just don't lose sight on the why. A lot of companies, airports, airlines, jump the wagon of just going with the trend and when it comes to trying new technologies. If you lose sight on the why, I think you lose the value of introducing, and this might become another hurdle you're adding to a process you're trying to optimize. So my advice for technology is yes, but start with the why you need it, and then look for a collaborative solution. That airport is extremely collaborative environment, and you can't work or bring in a solution that work for one and work against another. It's tough, it's not easy, but I think it's the way forward. Technology is the only way that will make air transportation more feasible for customers to choose. In our region, we are introducing now a new rail station or rail system that may take away the 20 to 40% feed into our airports from GCC countries. So unless we improve the efficiency of airport processes, the customers might choose to travel through another mean of transportation. So technology is there to make us survive, I think, the next phase of optimization. And we're open for it, and I think it will be very exciting to see how future would develop in the future.
Thank you.
Finally. So maybe if I blend both and keep it nice and short, sharp and simple, but it's, you have to have your staff need to have a clear strategy on where you're going, short, medium and long term. Let me give you an example. So my long-term strategy is to create a baggage hall, not a check-in hall. How am I going to get there? Don't know entirely right now, but that's the 10-year kind of plan. The 1-year plan is I'm putting more kiosks in the hall to create that 2-step process. And my medium-term plan is 3 to 5 years that I need to work out. But I need my staff to have that plan very clearly in their head. And then I want them to have that plan clearly in their head so that they're not, to pick up on Ali's point, they're not distracted by digital, right? So digital technologies come along and quite often senior managers, boards, IT departments get distracted by it and say, oh, let's do this. Your digital solution has to be in alignment with your end game long-term strategy and your medium-term and your short-term. So it's have that view. You need to be thinking 10 years ahead in airports. That's difficult when it comes to technology. So then have a 3 to 5 year and then the immediate 1 year. But do not get distracted by digital. Deploy it appropriately, but not recklessly. So that's my learnings over the years.
Yeah, so listen to your customers. Don't lose sight of the why, and educate your staff on your plan and put everything in alignment.
Involve them in the plan so that they own the plan. It's theirs. It's not a consultant's. It's not the boss's. It's their plan for the future. So very important.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this discussion. I learned a lot. I hope you did too. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.